In 1929, Edward Bernays, the father of modern propaganda, pulled off one of the most incredible feats of persuasion in history. Using the power of framing, Bernays convinced women to take up smoking and broke down a taboo that had existed for generations. Bernays was hired by the American Tobacco Company to promote smoking among women. To do this, he organized a publicity stunt that has gone down in history as a masterstroke of persuasion, using the framing effect. In the New York City Easter Day Parade, women's rights activists marched with cigarettes hidden up their sleeves. At a prearranged signal, they all pulled out their cigarettes and lit them up in unison. The event was covered by news photographers and reporters, and the images were disseminated widely in the media. By framing smoking as a symbol of women's liberation and equality, Bernays was able to create a positive association between smoking and women's rights. He tapped into the power of framing, using language and imagery to shape public opinion and influence behavior. This framing was successful in breaking down social taboos and promoting smoking among women, leading to a doubling of cigarette sales. By using the framing effect, Bernays was able to persuade the other half of the population to consider smoking as a way to express their freedom and equality. Overall, the story of Bernays' cigarette stunt is a testament to the power of persuasion and the effectiveness of framing in shaping public opinion. Hey rational rebels! Welcome to the arena of reason, where we train our minds to spot cognitive pitfalls. This is Chris from Critical Conditioning, and today's episode is all about the fascinating and powerful concept of the framing effect. Did you know that the way we frame information can have a huge impact on how people perceive and respond to it? By changing the language or context in which information is presented, we can influence people's opinions and behaviors without them even realizing it. In this episode, we'll explore the science behind the framing effect, and how it's been used in the real world to shape public opinion, promote products, and even influence political outcomes. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay up to date on all our latest episodes. And if you find our content valuable, please consider donating to our PayPal using the link in the description. Thanks for listening, and let's get started. Framing effect. Fun fact: studies have shown that even subtle changes in language and framing can have a big impact on how people respond to information. For example, presenting a medical procedure as having a 90% success rate may be more effective than presenting it as having a 10% failure rate, even though the two phrases convey the same statistical information. Have you ever made a decision that seemed completely rational at the time, only to realize later that you may have been influenced by the way the information was presented to you? That's the power of the framing effect, and it's been studied extensively in the fields of psychology and marketing. One fascinating study showed that the way we frame information can even affect our perceptions of risk. Researchers presented participants with information about a disease that would kill 600 people out of 1,000, and asked them to choose between two treatment options. When the treatments were framed as having a 200-person survival rate and a 400-person death rate, respectively, participants tended to choose the first treatment. However, when the same treatments were framed as having a 400-person mortality rate and a 200-person failure rate, respectively, participants tended to choose the second treatment. This shows how the way information is framed can override our rational decision-making processes. Another study looked at the impact of framing on political attitudes. Participants were presented with a hypothetical political issue and given two options, a liberal policy and a conservative policy. When the options were framed as keeping things the way they are versus making a change, participants tended to choose the conservative policy. However, when the options were framed as making progress versus sticking with the status quo, participants tended to choose the liberal policy. This shows how the way information is presented can have a significant impact on our political attitudes and beliefs. Interestingly, the framing effect can even affect the way we perceive our own emotions. In one study, participants were asked to rate the intensity of their emotional reactions to various situations, such as winning a prize or losing money. When the situations were framed as either a gain or a loss, participants tended to rate their emotional reactions more strongly when the situations were framed as losses. This shows how the way we frame our experiences can shape the way we feel about them. But it's not just about the language we use. The context in which information is presented can also have a big impact on our perceptions. For example, a study found that people were more likely to donate to a charity when the request was framed as a chance to give rather than a responsibility to give. This shows how the way we frame our actions can make them seem more or less appealing. Overall, these studies and questionnaires demonstrate just how powerful the framing effect can be in shaping our perceptions, attitudes, and behaviors. By being aware of how information is presented to us, we can make more informed decisions and avoid being influenced by framing biases. So, next time you're faced with a decision, take a moment to consider how the information is being framed and whether it might be affecting your judgment. Research has found that individual differences can affect the extent to which people are influenced by the framing effect. One key individual difference is cognitive ability. People with higher cognitive ability, such as those with greater working memory capacity, are less susceptible to the framing effect. This may be because they are better able to process and evaluate information, and are less likely to be swayed by irrelevant or misleading framing. Personality traits have also been found to play a role in susceptibility to the framing effect. For example, people who are more open to experience and less neurotic have been found to be less influenced by framing. This may be because they are more open to different perspectives and less likely to be influenced by emotional responses. Emotional intelligence is another individual difference that can affect susceptibility to the framing effect. People with higher emotional intelligence, who are better able to regulate their emotions and understand the emotions of others, are less likely to be influenced by emotional framing. Finally, cultural factors can also play a role in susceptibility to the framing effect. Studies have found that people from collectivist cultures, such as those in East Asia, may be less influenced by individualistic framing, while people from individualistic cultures, such as those in the West, may be less influenced by collectivist framing. Overall, individual differences such as cognitive ability, personality, emotional intelligence, and cultural background can all influence susceptibility to the framing effect. Understanding these differences can help individuals to be more aware of their own susceptibility and make more informed decisions. I got a quick question for you guys. Should schools start teaching students about the framing effect, to help them better recognize and defend against manipulation by the media, advertisers, and politicians? Share your thoughts in the comments below and be sure to read what others are thinking. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date with all our future episodes. The framing effect is a powerful cognitive bias that can influence our perceptions and decision-making. Here are 10 everyday examples of how the framing effect can be found in our lives. 1. Job titles. Employers often use job titles to frame a position in a positive light, such as calling a receptionist a customer relations specialist or a janitor a sanitation engineer. 2. Product packaging. Companies use packaging to frame their products in a positive light. For example, packaging that emphasizes a product's all-natural ingredients or organic label can make it seem more desirable to consumers. 3. News articles. News articles often use the framing effect to influence how readers perceive a story. For instance, an article that emphasizes the dangers of a certain activity may frame it as more risky than it actually is. 4. Political ads. Politicians use the framing effect in campaign ads to present their positions in a favorable light, while framing their opponents' positions negatively. 5. Movie titles. The title of a movie can influence how it's perceived. For instance, a movie with a title like The Pursuit of Happiness frames it as a feel-good film, while a title like Death Wish frames it as a darker movie. 6. Restaurant menus. Restaurants use descriptive language to frame menu items in a positive light, such as calling a burger juicy or a salad fresh. 7. Social media posts. Social media posts use the framing effect to influence how people perceive certain topics or issues. For example, a post that highlights the positive aspects of a political candidate can frame them in a more favorable light. 8. Advertisements. Advertisements use the framing effect to make products seem more desirable, such as emphasizing a car's luxury features or a cleaning product's powerful cleaning abilities. 9. Public service announcements. Public service announcements can use the framing effect to encourage behavior change, such as framing seatbelt use as a way to protect loved ones rather than simply obeying the law. 10. Clothing brands. Clothing brands can use the framing effect to make their products seem more exclusive or high-end, such as using expensive fabrics or emphasizing limited edition collections. By understanding the framing effect and being aware of its influence in our everyday lives, we can make more informed decisions and resist the urge to be swayed by persuasive framing. To spot the framing effect, pay attention to the language and imagery used in communication. Ask yourself if the information is being presented in a positive or negative light and if there are alternative ways it could be framed. Be wary of emotionally charged language and imagery that may be used to influence your perception. Another technique is to step back and analyze the bigger picture. Consider the source of the information and their potential motives for framing it a certain way. Additionally, check if you feel different or if your emotions have been stirred after hearing potentially framing information. By being aware of the framing effect and the techniques used to influence your perception, you can better spot it in yourself and others. Remember, awareness is key to avoiding cognitive pitfalls and making more informed decisions. Hey there, rational rebels. We've come to the end of today's episode on the framing effect. I hope you found it informative and eye-opening. Remember, being aware of the power of framing can help you make more informed decisions in your everyday life. But I want to take a moment to talk about something important. As a small independent channel, we rely on your support to keep creating high-quality content. That's why I'm urging you to donate to our PayPal using the link in the description. Your donation can help us continue to produce more great episodes like this one. And if you found today's episode particularly valuable, please consider sharing it with your friends and family. Together, we can help more people become aware of the framing effect and other cognitive biases. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Keep your mind sharp, rational rebels, and until next time, this is Chris from Critical Conditioning signing off.